Assets in divorce are divided either by the judge making a decision or by an agreement. Almost every case is decided by an agreement. The legal standard is called just and right division in the state of Texas. And if you can tell me what that means, then I would love for you to too, because in 18 years I haven't figured that out. You know what it means? It means whatever we want it to mean or whatever anybody thinks it means. It's kind of an equitable, opinionated, subjective standard. A lot of times it's 50-50, but not necessarily. So other factors like, does one spouse earn more than another? Theoretically, adultery could affect it, but I've seen adultery maybe affect it to where somebody gets 51% and the other one gets 49%. Relative earning capacity, though, can be a big difference. If one of the spouses is incapacitated, permanently disabled, a lot of different things like that go into it. But essentially, it's mostly a negotiated solution, which is why you definitely need an attorney to do it. Don't be the people that are trying to figure it out for themselves and you kind of arrange it in a certain way that sounds like it would work. You're falling into the same traps that young attorneys on their first few divorce cases do. In fact, their first few hundred divorce cases, they'll do that. You don't know what you don't know. Get a professional. Don't do it yourself. There's a lot of benefits in it from having an attorney that far outweigh the cost. As a percentage of your estate, we're probably less expensive than a realtor, but who's going to be more important, your attorney or your realtor? And if you hire the right attorney, they're going to declare peace and negotiate the peace, not escalate, not declare war. Sometimes we have to increase the fighting in order to end it, but that's never our first choice, at least at our firm. Other attorneys are different. Yeah, I would be afraid of those attorneys. But if you want an attorney like us, you can actually hire us in the state of Texas. Debts in a divorce are one of the hardest things to deal with because it depends on whose name the debt's in. If it's in both people's names and one of them doesn't have the ability to pay it, and you say, one says, oh, I'll pay half the debt, and the other one says, I'll pay half the debt. And so then we're going to split half the assets. You have to be really careful because what on paper looks like you're splitting the debt a lot of times winds up in one of them paying the other side's debt and having no recourse whatsoever. Because what are you going to do? Take them back to court and get a judgment, which is a worthless piece of paper because you can't collect on them. So you have to take these things into account. In divorce, things are not the way that they seem. A lot of things are counterintuitive, and you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know the tricks and traps unless you know the tricks and traps. And especially if the other side has an attorney, you must get an attorney because the other side's attorney is going to be trying to get you to take the deal that their client wants. Sometimes they're being honest with you. Sometimes it's the deal that you think. And other times, it's definitely not the deal that you think. So make sure that you get an attorney and hire an attorney that's not going to blow a good deal just so that they can bill you more because attorneys are paid by the hour, right? If you get an attorney that likes to increase the fighting or we're going to get you everything and get you your revenge and telling you that you're right and try and do all that, you don't want that attorney. You want an attorney that's going to help you get through the process in the healthiest way possible, and that's going to find a good solution for you. Figuring out what happens to the family home is one of the key difficult issues that we've got to figure out at the beginning of the case and at the end of the case, because there can be somebody, you got to figure out whether both of the spouses are going to live in the house while the divorce is pending or whether one of them is going to move out. Do not move out of that house until you talk to an attorney. Sometimes, especially if the person staying in the house is going to be worse off after the divorce, they've already got what they want and they're in the house. And sometimes you're moved out of the house and you're paying for it. They have no incentive to sign an agreement. They have every incentive to drag this out as long as possible. And the longer they drag it out, the more expensive it is and the more miserable it is for you. Moving out of the house is sometimes a strategic advantage, but sometimes it's a major strategic disadvantage. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but you need to have an attorney that advises you that you're hiring and going to be there with you, because one attorney may have a strategy that they know and answer based on what they would do, and then you follow that attorney's advice and then you go with a different attorney that doesn't understand or know that strategy, and then they're going to mess things up. It can get tricky. So find the right attorney, find an attorney that's going to help you get through the process in the healthiest way possible, hire that attorney and talk with them before you make any decisions about the marital home. If you move out of the marital home, does it affect custody arrangements? Probably not, but maybe. If you move out of the home and don't see your kids for more than 6 months and you're not paying any money and you've basically abandoned them for 3 or 6 months, that can be a problem. Moving out and immediately filing for divorce and asking for custody, that's not going to affect you negatively in the custody suit, although it can make things more difficult because if the other side doesn't want you to see the kids at all and you've left the kids and them in the marital house and you've left, they've got what they want. And it's going to be very difficult for them to for us to get them to agree to something because you've basically paid in advance without getting anything that you need. I like to have it to where we have the agreement in place and your rights are protected before you start delivering and giving them what it is that they want without you getting what you want. We want to make sure that you get what you want before we give them what they want, even if it's just legally in writing. Certain situations, we need to have the permission and the legal agreement first, then deliver. Other times we can do things simultaneously. It gets complicated, but we're here to make it simpler for you. Hidden assets are always a trick. So there are a lot of ways that we can find hidden assets, but there are some ways that we can't. I actually went to a seminar in Las Vegas about how to find assets that are in these safe deposit boxes at casinos, that they have cash, major deposits at casinos. A lot of that comes from looking at the finances. You got to get all the financial statements, and then you look back through years and years of them, and you analyze them and go, well, here's money that went from this account into this account at this other institution, but you haven't provided me those statements. So then we request and make sure that they provide those statements or force them to provide those. And if they don't provide those statements, then we subpoena them from that institution and look to see what we can find. Because a lot of times then we'll find and just trace the money out through the network and systems that they're sending it out. Sometimes that stuff is sent to Cayman Island accounts and Swiss bank accounts, different things like that. It gets very complicated in order to find it, and that can be one of the hard parts. Sometimes it's a matter of, well, we've located $50 million worth of assets here, and there's $50 million worth of missing. So our client's going to get these, and the other side's getting nothing except for what should be there. And they're going to keep whatever's hidden and walk away with nothing. So it's tricky. Do not hide assets. It just makes your divorce more expensive. We usually find them. You're not particularly being smart by it. Any of these different methods that people try to use. I mean, what winds up happening is the more you try and hide it, and when we find one little thing here and then one little thing here, then the judge is going to believe that there's 50 other things. And so anything that we ask for, the judge is going to give us. They're going to give us those records, and if you don't give those records, then you, with all your money that you've hidden in the Cayman Islands, are not going to be able to spend that money because you're going to be sitting in the local jail until you provide us that information. The judge is going to hold you in contempt for that. The best way to protect your assets is to not have to give them to the lawyers to fight while you're trying to hide them. Be upfront, list out all the assets that are there. When we do our search and analyze that, it'll be obvious that you're not hiding anything, and we'll get through the process in a much healthier way. But hidden assets, it's always one of the difficult things. Sometimes we don't find things, sometimes we do. Sometimes we suspect that things are there, but it always makes things difficult when there's that suspicion. So if you're facing that, or you're worried that people or your spouse is hiding that and you're facing a divorce, give us a call. Go to softdivorce.com.